Hi, my name is Stephanie Flint, and I am the co-creator of Infinitas Publishing. And today I'm going to be doing a reading from Magic Stealing. It'll be chapter 12, so we're finally getting back to that. In addition, Isaac and I have been working with a group of friends to play test some expansion ideas for battle decks. Now that we have the main set out and available, we're trying to work on the expansions. Isaac is also working on putting some of the final touches on Phalanx, so you'll be seeing some more information about that soon. And in the meantime, I'm working on trying to format Distant Horizon, so more information will be coming about that soon. So, as per usual, we're trying to get a lot of stuff out, and in the meantime, I hope you enjoy the reading.
Chapter 12. Everything was cold. Everything was grey. But Tyranna's side yielded to the dull throb and stopped complaining. Kafrash stared at her, his eyes wide, no doubt because he'd just seen her run away with Dernan. Good. She could use his confusion. She lunged. She'd get that shadow blade from his treacherous fist. Back! He snapped. Her legs froze in mid-attack, and she stumbled over her feet. Half of her tried to move forward. The other half struggled as far back from her master as possible. She bared her teeth at him. He was not her master. Shivering, freezing, unable to see the outside fields clearly, but able to see every detail of the misty cave, she finally stopped struggling. But she did not move back. This was his shadow realm, and when he'd struck her with the blade, she'd become a shadow. But she was nobody's pet, nobody's puppet, nobody's warrior but her own, and he tried to command her. She staggered to her feet. He would not control her. Kafrash watched, puzzled, as she rested her hand over the wound in her side. "Impossible," he whispered. "You can't be here now." "But I am." She smirked. For once she'd caught magic's lure and flung it right back. "Tyranna, get out of there!" Ifa's voice rushed through her head. No leer, only fear. "Next time," Tyranna said, grinning. Then she raced to the boulders where she'd first appeared. The stone was there, shimmering and calling for her to come. She grabbed the stone between the palms of her hands. The stone burned. Fire lashed at her skin like endless rope. Light engulfed her, and before she could remember the seer's dwelling with its terrible, sickly incense, the world turned white, a terrible, terrible white, and she fell into unconscious oblivion. Ifa skirted out of the way as a shadow came flying through the portal and crashed face first into a wooden rack behind her. Wind ripped at the hanging ropes. Her robes tossed and tugged her toward the portal, which sucked at the air and began pulling the girl back. She grabbed Tyranna's arms and yanked her from the roaring funnel. The girl was cold and shadowy, colder than the northern village of Reverach. This shouldn't be happening. The portal should have closed when Tyranna returned, but it was open now, trying to draw the girl back inside. A vase and a pair of plates flew into the brilliant light and vanished. The goddess's long hair whipped her cheeks like tiny, insolent bees. "Matthias, help us all," she prayed silently. The Shota Kachal didn't like transporting shadows. She shoved Tyranna under the cover of the nearest bookshelf and ducked as a wooden bowl tumbled overhead and flew into the void. Another vase, a ceramic bowl, a pair of dead light crystals. She raised her hands, bracing herself against the torrent, then changed her sight. Gone were the bright ribbons of the mortal world. Instead, thin filaments struck out and rippled, in and out, every color and every strand, unraveling and restringing themselves into new shapes and figures. Ifa plucked a free string from the air. It meshed with her skin, then loosened, trying to tie itself into something, anything it could. She shuddered. She could loosely bind such magic. Loosely, and that's why she was the matchmaker. But now she wished Liston and Sasrar were here to guide her. He could create, if he so chose, and he could make sure the portal were closed properly. But he wasn't here, so she caught another free strand, and another, then tied them, piece by piece, drawing the portal to a little circle no larger than a thimble. Then she reached to the unconscious girl and plucked a tiny bit of her life's magic, what she'd normally use to bind two lovers. This string she frayed with the nail of her index finger and a thought. A filament was all she needed, and she replaced the rest. The girl tossed, sweating. Poor child. The stone was not supposed to react like this. Ifa wove the filament into the strings that barred the portal, then stepped away. "How's this?" she whispered. "Not bad," Medaia's silky thoughts purred. Ifa let out a sigh of relief. In normal circumstances, the Shodokachara would have merged the new reality without a second's hesitation. With the shadow, it must have required something different. It had to adapt, and now she had no idea what the Shodokachara would do to someone who was drowned in shadow magic. With luck, Tirana would return to her world as she was in this new timeline, with only a dream of the original events that she had passed through. You do not have to be aware for the final adjustment of this timeline, Medaya sent, her voice gentle. Iva nodded. Already the strings wobbled and leveled, but the world was shifting around her, through her. The glass on the floor was broken, and it wasn't. The vase was half returned, half transparent. The room faded as the strings rippled and changed. Finish this, Iva agreed, but don't let me see it. She didn't need to remember her own timeline unraveling to make room for the new. Knowing it happened was plenty. She felt a fingertip lightly prod the back of her spine. Something tugged in her chest. The room blurred, and the last she remembered was Medaya temporarily removing the string that kept her alive.